I'm Jean-Baptiste Vautier, co-founder of the Vautier Family Office, board member of many companies that includes Pershing Square, Howard Hughes, and many others, and also a private investor. Today on Global Lens Macro to Micro, I'm sitting down with someone who is a visionary leader and a great friend, Alireza Razavi, founder of Studio Razavi, which is one of the portfolio companies in which I'm very proud to be invested. Studio Razavi has offices in Paris, London, New York, offers a pretty wide range of services, interiors, master planning, etc., across many sectors, residential, corporate, hospitality, and more. It's mostly renowned for translating clients' needs and budget into lasting, memorable designs. Studio Razavi is truly dedicated to creating enduring spatial experiences that reflect commitment to excellence. And also, I know Alireza cares about craftsmanship. So it's great to have you here, Alireza. I want to say first a few words about how we got to know each other. We've been friends now, I think, approaching 20 years. And Alireza is actually the brother of the wife to one of my even longest friends, 30 plus years. And that's how we got to know each other. And since that very fortuitous encounter, we stayed and glued to one another. And here we are. So, Alireza, great to have you. Thank you for taking the time. And why don't we start by a bit of history? And people always love to hear about founders' history and how Studio Razavi came to be.
Sure. Thanks for organizing this interview. And well, how it came to be is that most probably majority of architects have this ambition or objective to start their own practice one day. Not all, but many of us do and will. So after working for a variety of offices in the US and Japan, I had the opportunity to take the leap, and I did. And it started in New York, and then Paris, and then London. And I think that the call to start your own practice is most probably to achieve the ultimate goal of fully being able to express yourself and controlling the different design criteria that are available to an architect. And so yeah, I think that was the drive.
As you said, and I've discovered that, alongside you and being invested now in the studio, as you said, most architects ambition to have their own thing and to be able, as you said, to express themselves. Why is it that you think, your own secret sauce sort of work? Because there's, most want to do it, but most fail to do it,
Right.
or they try and they fail. And if you can zoom in some of the positioning of the agency, materiality and cultural context, high level of artistic sensitivity, but at the same time, technical rigor, engineering. I know it's also a big pillar. So can you
Sure.
elaborate a bit more about, what was the secret sauce and
Yeah.
why you think it
Well,
worked?
yeah, I think what worked for me, and it's by no means a universal solution, but what worked for me was to start small. And I think that what helped me with the smaller scale is that you build confidence, when you start off your small team, and it basically all rests on your shoulders, right? So starting off small allowed to have full control and have a good sort of horizon line on where I knew I could take the project and the client relationship and the project budget and the timeline and so on and so forth. So I think the first opportunity that really you know uh, crossed my atmosphere, I went for it. And I knew what I was going to leave behind, working in more established firms, having access to larger jobs and so on and so forth. But it really goes to show that this drive to be able to produce your own set of ideas and confront them with reality being budget, timeline, and a client's objective,
And
is what I was
physical
after.
reality.
Yeah. So yeah, small worked well for me. And yeah, like you just said before, there were two criteria that I always tried and push, regardless of the size of our projects or the typology of jobs. And it was the science, so to speak. I like to call it technique because it's not really science,
Mm-hmm.
and culture. And I don't want to call it art because I think architecture stands right in the middle. It's not art. The outcome of architecture is not art, and it involves science, but it's technique. So mastering these two, or being sensitive to these two, because who can fully master anything, but was important to me, again, regardless of the scale, to the
Mm-hmm.
point that, and maybe we'll discuss this later, but with the advent of CAD, computer design, then 3D, then animation, and BIM, building information models, and AI now, of course, I really strongly believe that if architects cannot master or be in command of these two criteria, then we're at risk.
That makes sense. That leads me naturally to another question about, how do you design a space that remains both, not only in place but relevant and beautiful. Sorry to use
Yeah,
the
no,
beautiful, which is
yeah,
in the eye
yeah,
of the beholder, but you see what
yeah.
I'm saying, with a
Sure.
certain
No,
notion of
absolutely.
harmony. And how do you achieve what I'm sure any architect is looking for, which is
Right.
timelessness?
To the risk of shocking many, I think there's no invention. There is no invention in science, and I don't think there are any inventions in the arts. It's a matter of starting from where others left it and continuing this trajectory, this path. And and it's very true of science, and it's, I think, very true in the arts. So I think that's exactly how I approach a project. I want to make sure that what we produce has a place in history, and it's history in terms of history of construction, history of craftsmanship, history of building spaces. I'm not interested in looking for an interruption. I'm not interested in the next new thing. I'm actually interested in implementing solutions and designs that I've encountered or developed in the past that I knew work, or look at where it failed and improve that project after project.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was pretty much how it functioned for about 10,000 years, before the advent of reinforced concrete or modernism, in the early 20th century. It was always about,
Increment.
taking on from others, from where
Mm.
others had left it, and pushing the envelope a little, but not always being in this constant objective of coming up with the next new thing. Yeah, I'm not really interested in that.
You and I saw that during some of our trips in
Yes, we did.
Algeria or Iraq, where
Yes,
you
we did.
see 3, 4 civilizations sort of
Yep,
building on top of one another.
absolutely.
Maybe at this juncture, I should explain how we ended up, being on top of friends, becoming partners as well. And because you're a bit too humble about your work as well. I think, it's always the same thing. It's first about the founder or the entrepreneur, which is, do you have enough chemistry? I mean, in our case, it was easy because we'd been friends for so long. But do you have enough chemistry and alignment on the fundamentals? And then, can I help you? Am I sure I can help you? And once we sort of tick that box, you and I, it was a classic work. And this is where I think you're a bit modest, but that's, humility is a virtue. But it was a classic case of, okay, what's your, Warren Buffett calls it moat. What's your competitive advantage? So what is the market telling me about your talent, the talent of the team, the brand name, etc. And in your case, it was easy because you had already, the studio has been 15 years of existence, if not more. So you had already a lot of projects, buildings of various sorts with big clients, very different geographies, prestigious ones. And on top of that, not only commercially you were up there, but also there was a vast amount of prizes and acknowledgement of the quality of your work by your peers and stuff. So to me, I just knew that your talent was there, and then it was about, okay, what's the potential? What can we do to unlock it? In my view, and are you ready to take those steps? And there again, there was plenty of alignment. So it was, okay, what's the competitive advantage? What's the potential? Do we have alignment on what you're trying to build? Can I help you? And off we go,
Right.
and here we are, and it's been a fantastic journey.
Yeah, and I think on that last point, as you know, architects are not trained to run companies.
For sure.
And not only are we not trained, and I attended a few places of higher education in different countries, but we were never told that, yes, you guys are architects, you're designers, you're about building, you're about creating urban landscapes, so on and so forth. But at no point were we told that in order to achieve that, you did need a viable structure. You did need a viable business structure. And so because it was never part of our culture, I think we obviously snubbed it, and we felt that the architect was this all powerful Nietzschean figure, that sure, we can handle it. And so needless to say, not only can we not handle it because we're only humans, but the very organization of the business, in our case, the studio, affected how we approached design,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think I started understanding that by myself, questioning the dogma that, we're architects, we need no one, right? We're on top of this pyramid. And but you start challenging these beliefs yourself at one point, and you look in other directions in what we called corporate architects, which we, sort of stayed clear from. And you realize, well, you know, damn, I have to admit that, they're pretty good at what they're doing, they know how to build, they know how to put these structures together. And on top of it, their clients seem to be happy because they come back for more. So I think that's when the whole structure started to, showing cracks as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's, I had reached a point where, and that's when we started our conversations, that I was absolutely ready to just hear from your lifetime experience, 30 years plus of doing this. And you very gently approach this and by saying, listen, if you need any advice, I can provide some. And yeah, I was definitely ready. And I, again, I know it's difficult to speak to my younger self and say, listen, yeah, business is an important part of it and how it's structured. And it's not just about architects, it's, support uh, staff that you need to make the design happen and so that your clients are happy and so on and so forth. But and I probably wouldn't have listened. But yeah, it's really, genuinely, I feel like saying that the become the foundation of how I picture myself working in the next, in the coming years.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sounds good. Let's switch gear and talk about some of the projects, some of the realizations. And I'm gonna do the classic, just pick one. If you were to pick one, you're only allowed one.
only
Which
one.
one would that be and why?
Well, it's tough to pick only one, but
It's like choosing one of your kids, but it's a forcing
right, right,
mechanism.
right. I think I will probably pick an office project that we did in Paris a few years ago because it sort of sums up everything about a project that can go right. And most of us learn a lot from our mistakes. But in this instance, this project, which was very successful and remains successful in the sense that the client feedback is awesome, even the people
Don't
who've
give us the name, but give us a bit more,
sure.
you
So it's
know, who
this
was
was
the
a
client,
large
the size, where
right.
in
This was a
Paris.
large office building in Paris. for a law firm, and it had to be entirely gutted and reconfigured for this law firm, but with a very specific objective to make it look like these guys had been around forever and will be around forever.
I like the idea.
And you know what? It worked, and it worked at a variety of levels. And I think that one of the reasons that we hit all those targets is that there was tremendous trust from the client, and we were given the opportunity to explain things, to introduce our objectives, and then answer these objectives using the architect's tool, materials, light, program, so on and so forth. And I think that the quality of these conversations is actually what allowed for this project to be that successful. So I wish all projects could have this sort of quality of exchange between us and the client, and we sort of meet somewhere in the middle. It's not like do whatever you want to do, no budget, no timeline. Quite the opposite. There's a specific budget, there's a very constrained timeline. So these are good. I think architects need these parameters. They're essential. And I think anyone that's involved with a creative process needs constraints. But yeah, I think that having this level of trust and allowing to explain how we do things and why we do them, and at times it takes many conversations, and yeah, I think that was really the secret of this job's success.
Yeah.
I could argue that projects that went through a more sort of abrasive relationship with the client or the contractors or the consultants have also turned out to be successful, but at different levels.
But it brings a fascinating one, which is we often discuss, you and I, the customer centricity of architectural agencies and stuff. So because in a way I see this, unlike most consumer businesses, I see this as there's like three dimensions. There's client satisfaction. There is your own satisfaction in the sense that you fully aligned with what you designed, and it's aligned with your vision, with what you think is right, how it should fit the space, etc., etc. And then there's a third dimension, which is critical acclaim, peer acknowledgement of, because there's a strong notion of peers in your field. What is the typical greatest measure of success out of those three
Oh,
for
wow.
for an architect, for you?
Right.
I mean, of course you want all
Right.
three, but you see, what's the pecking
Yeah,
order?
sure. I think that if I were to sort of envision or think about how our work will be remembered in the future, I would rather someone see one of our spaces, buildings, and say, "Wow, this is remarkable." Not really necessarily knowing why it's remarkable. It could be because it's well built, or it feels right, whatever, but not remember our name per se. And I think, who knows who the architect of the pyramids in Egypt were, or the Parthenon, or so on and so forth, right? Or French cathedrals. I mean, there aren't even drawings for these buildings, right?
Yeah.
They're gone. We don't even know if there were any drawings.
We're not
So
even sure. I
what
was going to say.
matters,
Yeah.
what stays, what contributes to society at large, what contributes to the urban landscape, is ultimately how it was built, I think. Not so much because it was innovative or was a fancy design. So I think the measure of success, as far as I'm concerned, would be something that's impeccably built, fabricated, produced.
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes total sense.
that's the central criteria as far as
Makes total sense. I want to ask you a last question, because we're already running after. We could do a part two easily. and you briefly touched upon it, which is AI, because again, it's a topic you and I talk a lot about, and never cease to fascinate us. But like, how do you see AI impacting your field in general, and what are you doing, to try and be ahead of the pack on this on this big revolution?
Yeah, so we grabbed this bull by the horn just this past year and started to think about it in a structured way, as opposed to, everyone in the office trying out different language models and coming up with different solutions, different methodologies. So I think that the way it will definitely impact our work is the pace at which we can produce or translate ideas into images and
Mm.
videos. The challenge that I see right now is that this is a tool that can produce extremely seductive images in a very short amount of time, and shown to a client create phenomenal attraction, but then the architect needs to build it.
Yeah.
So this gap between creating this super seductive image and actually building it is what I'm concerned with, and it's interesting because as technology, occupies more and more room, my sense is that this gap between creating images and building is actually widening, you know? So to some extent, it would be like saying that AI is going faster than robotics,
Mhm.
which it actually is. I mean, I'm sure there's
It
more
is.
investments in
Yeah.
AI than
Yeah.
robotics, but yeah, so our tools to translate, here you go,
Mhm.
that pristine image into a built form are not there yet,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's something we'll probably be struggling with in the next couple of years. Yeah.
There's still some value
Yeah.
in human architects.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to allow a very very last, sorry, which is,
Sure.
since we talk about the future, talk about upcoming plans, or where you'd like to see the studio in 5 to 10. Like, what excites you when you look ahead, or what are you looking forward to?
I think what I'm really looking forward to is to see a sort of a new generation of architects in our office grow, and because just like you said, this is not something that a single person produces. That's not how architecture functions. It's
Mhm.
first and foremost teamwork. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to be surrounded by the same, see a team move up. And because I think ultimately the way you get to better designs and better buildings is by building these reflexes that you know exactly what works and how to improve it. And in order to do that, well, ideally you need to grow with this team. You guys,
Yeah.
this is a path we need to walk on together. I know the industry likes to push forward the single figure of the
The
genius
figurehead.
architect, but that's
Yeah.
not how it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's inspiring. Thanks a lot, Alireza.
Thank
It's
you.
been fascinating. I always enjoy getting to sit down with founders of the company and invest in, even more when they're close friends, and talk about how business is going and their plans for the future. So thank you for that. I'm, as you know, very excited
I know.
by all the recent developments and what's ahead for Studio Razavi. So thank you for that. If you found value in this conversation, please like this video, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more conversations like this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.